Well, that's what got him in trouble in the first place. You see, so he's working as a farmhand basically, and he's got his boss's truck, and they've got one of it's not a huge one, but they've got like a milk tank on the back, right? And so he's down over there in northern Indiana, and he wants to take his milk load up to the dairy processing wherever they do that at, which is just over the border, just literally in our backyard here in Hillsdale County. And so he does that, and there's an equipment problem with the truck, and then he gets stopped by the police, and they just randomly ask, "Hey, you got any guns in the car, whatever?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, I carry a gun every day. Why? What's the problem?" And he's carrying in Indiana. He's 100% legal. He's 100% legal, but because Indiana has like a constitutional carry type thing where you have permitless carry, you don't actually have to have a card. He doesn't have a way to give anybody anything when he goes into Michigan. So he ends up getting charged with felony CCW in the state of Michigan. And he's thinking, and I understand where this thought comes from. He's thinking, well, wait a minute. I thought we have reciprocity. In other words, I thought Michigan respects Indiana's concealed carry laws. And the fact is, it only respects those laws up until a point. You see, you have to actually have an Indiana license for Michigan to actually respect or observe. Now, we can debate it all day long, but that's just the facts. It's what it is. So if you don't have an Indiana license for Michigan to honor, then you don't have a license. And in Michigan, since we are not a constitutional carry or a permitless carry state, that's where you run afoul of the law. And it was a pretty big ordeal that the guy never expected. And he had no previous criminal record or anything like that. And we were able to get him a solution. He's not a felon. But sadly, like happens a lot of times, he ends up losing the gun, and I think that's kind of ridiculous. But that's just sort of a thing that the prosecutors around here, tie to any sort of a reasonable resolution. Which I guess we could debate if it's reasonable or not, but that's what they try and do. So let's jump into this whole reciprocity thing. In other words, if you are a Ohio resident, an Illinois resident, an Indiana resident, and you want to carry your handgun concealed in your person when visiting Michigan, what do you have to do? Are you able to do it? Like I mentioned in the introduction, after we had posted some of these videos, our inbox and our telephone was just absolutely flooded and inundated with these kind of calls. So I'm going to try to make a video that somewhat breaks this down into a cohesive, easy to understand format. And remember, if you or anybody that you care about is in the state of Michigan and gets pulled over or cited or in some kind of trouble due to a CCW or a concealed carry type situation, reach out to my office here at the Stickley Law Firm, and we'll bring you in for a thorough case evaluation, and we'll really do our best to help you. And if we can't help you, we'll try and point you in the direction that will, all right? So let's jump into this. In general, does an Ohio, Indiana, or Illinois license to carry a concealed gun work in Michigan? And the simple answer to that is yes, it is. But there are certain caveats and nuances that you better know before you do this, or you're going to find yourself running afoul of Michigan law while you're here, and that can get really expensive and disappointing. The overall rule in Michigan that deals with this is that if you hold an actual license from those states, in other words, the carry licenses from those states, you can carry in Michigan with no problem whatsoever. Michigan recognizes non-Michigan residents who are licensed by their state of residence to carry concealed. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you have the Ohio permit or license, or if you have the Indiana permit or license, or if you have the Illinois permit or license, that permit is respected here in the state of Michigan. But the important part to know is permitless carry from your home state does not carry over. Well, what do I mean by that? Now, I am not a Ohio, Indiana, or Illinois attorney, so I am not giving any sort of legal advice with how those states work and really what you're allowed to do there. I am only talking about what Michigan laws apply when you are from those places and you come here into our jurisdiction, okay? I understand that certain states are now what are deemed as constitutional carry states, okay? And that means that I believe Indiana is one, for instance. You don't actually have to have and Ohio might be the same. You don't have to have any sort of a permit to carry a firearm, a pistol, a handgun, concealed on your body. As long as you qualify and you're not a felon and you don't have some legal barring of that, You put it in a holster, you put it in your pocket, you do whatever you do, and you go about your business. That's how it is. No problem as long as you don't leave the state. But when you go into Michigan, Michigan has reciprocity with those states. But the only way that we can get reciprocity is if you have a license from those states. I do know that Ohio, Indiana, and I'm pretty sure that Illinois as well has an actual formal licensing process that even if you don't have to have one to carry immediately while you're in that state, they will still issue you one if you request it and go through the proper channels. In fact, I believe I was just reading an article, and you're going to want to research this or talk to counsel in Indiana, but I believe Indiana actually might even have a potentially a lifetime option or a fee-free option, or maybe even both. So if you're there, you definitely want to check into that. Like I said, I'm not an Indiana attorney, but I have heard those kind of things when I have clients come over and ask me questions about it. So if you want to carry in Michigan, if you want to have that reciprocity with those specific states. And the reason I'm talking about Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois is because they're sort of the border states. And I guess I probably should have looked up Wisconsin. I'm not that familiar with Wisconsin because for most of our state, we have a lake separating the two. So with the exception of some stuff up in the UP, we really don't see a lot of crossover from Wisconsin. But we see Illinois, Ohio, and Indiana people all the time crossing the border having these issues. So that's kind of what I'm concentrating on. The important thing to remember here is that Michigan does not recognize non-resident constitutional carry. That's the most important part. And quite frankly, that's the part that a lot of people who come into Michigan who unfortunately have to become my client because they made a mistake screw up. They're down in Indiana, especially where we're at here. So my office is in Hillsdale County, and we're a border county with the state line. It's just barely south of where I sit today. And so a lot of people sort of assume, well, hey, we got constitutional carry in Indiana, or they don't even think about it. They literally don't even think about it. And the next thing you know, they're carrying a pistol in their pocket and they're driving. I had one not that long ago guy was a farmer, and I think he was hauling some stuff to a milk processing plant. He gets pulled over, and he didn't have any ill intent in Indiana. He'd have been not violating any law. But the second that he crosses over and he gets hit for a violation, they just happen to randomly say, hey, you got any weapons in the car? And the guy doesn't think he has any problem whatsoever, right? He's like, yeah, I got my, I got a pistol here and whatever. And they're like, well, do you have a license? He's like, well, I don't need one in my state. Am I in trouble? And the answer is, yeah, you're actually in big trouble. And they charged him. And they kind of wanted to be really hard about it. And one of the favorite tricks, unfortunately, of the prosecutors here in Michigan is, even if they make a deal, I'm just going to tell you right now in the video, pretty much no deal, no negotiation, no mediation is done without you forfeiting the gun. And I guess that is going to send me on a little tangent here because this issue has come up several times very, very recently, and certain people get very frustrated with this situation. Guys, do not carry for your personal protection any sort of heirloom firearm. A firearm for personal protection is a tool. And tools are meant to be used, and sometimes tools break, and sometimes tools are disposable. And if you are in some sort of a shooting incident defending the life of you or somebody you care about, even if you're innocent, I would say 8.5 times out of 10, whatever the resolution is going to be, rightly or wrongly, you're probably going to end up losing that firearm. So do not carry something with a massive amount of sentimental value that's irreplaceable. I'm just saying, I have seen, a couple of my clients, I've seen many other clients in these situations, and it's kind of heartbreaking, all right? So let's talk about Michigan rules that visitors often miss. That is, you're an Ohio resident, an Indiana resident, an Illinois resident, you have a license for your home state, you come over to Michigan. It is super important. It's your responsibility to only carry, and you have to follow Michigan's rules, not the rule of your home state. Some of the home states have vastly different rules and requirements of where you can carry, where you can't carry, than Michigan does. And it is your responsibility, if you're carrying within the state of Michigan, to abide by Michigan's rules and laws. I know the USCCA, I'm not affiliated with them. I know many of you asked. They're a very useful organization. They appear to do really good work. They have a lot of resources, I think, on their website, and there's some others. But you definitely want to kind of peruse or get a legal guide. We might even put one together eventually of a sort of a cheat sheet of, hey, going to Michigan with your gun, these are the things you really need to know. But we're going to go over some right now. Number one, you have an immediate duty to inform during a stop. If you're carrying concealed and you're stopped by police, that's a traffic stop or any investigative stop. I'm not talking about you're going to the county fair and you're talking to your buddy who's a reserve officer and you happen to have a gun. Hey, but just so you know, I got my gun in my pocket. Like, you don't have to do that. But if there's an investigative stop, there's a traffic stop, anything like that, just disclose. They normally don't care, and it makes them feel better. So just disclose. All right. You have to immediately disclose that you're carrying, and you got to present your license and your ID on request. And failure to do so could result in some sort of civil infraction or worse. Okay. Also, so you have to carry your permit and your ID. When you're carrying, you have to carry the license and your government photo ID, and you got to show them on either request or in this transaction that we're talking about right now. In the state of Michigan, I can show you right now in my pocket. When you're here, it's probably a good idea anywhere you're at. But boom, there's my driver's license right there. And what is right behind my driver's license, right? Driver's license, CPL permit. Driver's license, CPL. They're married, right? They're one. Okay? You keep them both in the same pocket, so when one comes out, the other one comes out. Stay covered, stay cool. That's what you want to do, all right? Super, super, super important. The one thing that a lot of people get hung up on is Michigan's pistol-free zones, where concealed carry is bad. And this is going to be a little bit of a controversial topic that I talk about, because I'm going to be talking about this rule from the standpoint of probably a little bit overly prudent, because there has been some case law, and I fully acknowledge that there are some, shall we say, I don't want to say a loophole, but some technicalities that go along with this that you can get people in or out of trouble. And I'm not going to go there right now. I'm just going to give you the rule of thumb that will keep your butt out of trouble, okay? With a recognized out-of-state license, you cannot carry concealed in the places listed in Michigan statute, which is, it's MCL, I think it's 28 for 2050. So the basis of that, and it's actually printed on the back of, I think, all Michigan CPL cards: schools, daycare centers, sports arenas and stadiums, large entertainment facilities of 2,500 plus seats, which has always like blown my mind, right? So that takes the Fox Theater out if you're going to downtown Detroit. I don't know what happens when you have 2,501 seats. Suddenly it's not safe to have guns. But if you got 2,498 seats, you're like, yeah, let's all go armed. It's kind of ridiculous to me, but that's the rule. It is what it is. Leave it to a bunch of government legislatures to come up with these funny numbers. Bars or taverns that serve alcohol for on-premise consumption. Let's talk about that for a minute. I think I might have covered this in some of my other videos, and you might want to go back and watch some of those CPL videos. But a bar or a tavern, I get asked time and time and time again, how do I know the difference between a bar or tavern and a restaurant? And the best rule of thumb I can really give you, the technical part of the law, I'll just tell you the technical, and I'll give you the best rule of thumb. The technical part is, if the majority of their revenue comes from liquor sales, basically, you're not allowed to carry in there. Well, how the heck do you know? It's not like you're like, hi, excuse me, Andy's Bar, Grill, and Pub. Can I see your latest audit and see where you get all your money from? Of course, that would be ridiculous. But one of my instructors, when I became a CPL instructor, was pounding in our head to pound in our students' heads. You know, when you're in a bar, you know you're in a bar, right? If you go to this place, it's dimly lit. They have really no kitchen outside of maybe a little deep fryer, right? We're talking rural Michigan. They got these places everywhere. And you can order French fries, or if the main food is something in the pickle jar on the back of the bar, and that stuff could be actually good. Probably dangerous to eat, but good, right? Or they have a hot dog roller as their big menu, and they're just serving beers and drinks, right? Probably not a place you can go. Some of the confusing parts tend to be things like Applebee's or TGI Fridays, and sadly, a lot of those are going out of business. But Applebee's at 5 o'clock, even though they have a bar, right, is a lot different crowd than Applebee's at, say, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So you're going to have to use your discretion. If it's a place where food is like a thing, a driving, motivating factor for people to go there, you might be all right. If you're just going for beers and shots, with the guys after the golf game, and you can't order a taco salad, a chef salad, and chicken cordon bleu or whatever, then, well, there you go. Okay. So no bars and taverns. Churches are places of worship without permission. That's one that comes up a lot. We're living in a crazy, crazy, crazy world where maniacs are attacking houses of worship. And it blows my mind that this is even a conversation that we have to have in a rational society. I know that many parishes and churches and houses of worship are starting to implement actually security teams and do it quite effectively. They have permission to do that. If your lead pastor or priest, who's ever the presiding official of that house of worship, gives you permission, and that permission should be written, then it is okay. If you do not have that permission, technically that is not okay. Hospitals fall under the PFZs, the pistol-free zones. College, university, classrooms, and dorms. That is something that has been highly, highly litigated in the state of Michigan. And quite frankly, I'm not even sure if it's done being litigated. There was a whole thing going on a couple of years ago about how school districts and universities and such were almost their own separate entity of government. And did they have the power to make said rules and such? And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I have not kept up because my career sort of went in the straight criminal defense, sort of after those kind of issues come up. So I'm not super up to speed on that stuff. If this is an issue that you're having, though, I could probably point you in the right direction. But as a rule, classrooms and dorms, you can't have firearms in. And parking areas that are not included in premises. So if you have questions about these, check out some websites, drop us a comment down here below. We'll do our best to get to as many comments as we can. And you might want to scroll through the comments. I know these kind of videos tend to get a lot of questions. We try to answer them. And a lot of people ask the same question. So you might want to scroll before you ask to see if it's already been answered, or if you have a real legal problem, give us a call. Casinos. Casinos are a big no-no. Detroit's got some great ones. Firearms, opened or concealed, are prohibited. So don't go there. Don't go to a casino with a firearm. Now, some lawyers are arguing that some CPL holders can argue, and this is what I was referring to before, can open carry in pistol-free zones because the statute bans concealed carry. This is where the road gets really narrow. Okay, and if this is a situation that you find yourself in or have questions about, you're really going to want to find competent legal counsel to help run you through some scenarios. A lot of our clients that are sort of proactive about this stuff just say, okay, well, those are the places that I can't carry. Those are probably the places I don't want to go to, because PFZs, pistol-free zones, tend to be violent zones. I'm probably preaching mostly to the choir here. I am a pro-Second Amendment guy, and I do believe in John Lott's premise that more guns usually equal less crime. So that being said, use your discretion where you go and where you are able to defend your family when you don't have the right to do so. Let's talk about the rule of alcohol implied consent testing for CPL and recognized licensees. So if you have a carry license in either Michigan or these other states, that means that you have implied consent to a chemical test if there's probable cause that you're carrying under the influence. What does that mean? That means that you're pre-agreeing, believe it or not, to a chemical test. And Michigan uses a tiered approach to these blood alcohol content things. If you're a .02 and you have a gun on you, you're going to get a civil infraction. .08 is a misdemeanor. And if you refuse a test, that could instantly trigger up to a 6-month suspension of your carry privileges. What does this mean? Do we really want to go in the woods on this one, out in the swamp? I'm going to tell you, as an instructor, as an attorney, if you are consuming alcohol, your senses are lowered, your reaction times are lowered. Do not carry a firearm. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Safe storage, properly stored in your vehicle, and do not fall into this trap. It is far too risky. There is way too much at stake. It's not something that you want to run afoul of. Do not drink alcohol and carry firearms. Period. End of story. Regardless if it's legal or not, God forbid you ever had to get into a situation and you end up having to use a deadly weapon. You're going to need every single last bit of your faculties that you have to use that tool and to use it effectively and to use it properly and to exercise judgment. Do not impair that judgment and put yourself in a situation where you're not able to properly soberly and as effectively as you can, make that call, because that really is one of the biggest decisions you can ever make in your entire life. And you can't pull back a bullet, and you can't re-aim a bullet once it's coming out of the barrel of a gun. Another thing that it's important to remember for people out of state is Michigan actually, surprisingly to me, actually does not have a magazine limit, a round limit. There's no mag capacity limit for handguns. If you're rolling around with a 35 round mag, I don't know what you're worried about. If you need a 35 round mag, you probably need to not be wherever the heck it is you think you need to carry that thing at. That being said, there's no real prohibition against it. Michigan does have some stand your ground, castle doctrine type protections. You do have a recognized right to defense, self-defense, and there are some presumptions that you are innocent if you have to take a life or something happens in those situations. But with a massive caveat, just because you have that presumption does not mean that you won't get prosecuted. I will say that again. Just because you have that presumption in this state does not mean that you will not be prosecuted. You will probably have to defend yourself against something. I have seen it time and time and time again. So if you're going to pull that firearm and you're going to use it for self-defense, you better darn near make sure that it is truly worth it and somebody's life is on the line. We don't shoot people over property. We don't shoot people over grudges. That's just not how this thing works. A firearm is a tool of last resort. So while we're at it here, let's talk about a couple of state-specific quick notes that I've had people come into here and ask about how their specific state rules, vary or interact with Michigan. So let's break this down even a little further, and we'll go state by state. Just a couple of important things to recap and to know. For Ohio residents coming into the state of Michigan, your Ohio resident, I think it's your CHL license, I believe they call it there in Ohio. It is valid to carry concealed in Michigan, but permitless carry does not transfer. You still need that license if you're going to do it. The duty to inform immediately applies in Michigan, even though I believe, and don't take this as gospel, I'm not an Ohio attorney, but I believe Ohio's actually dropped that requirement. Again, as far as Indiana residents go, your Indiana resident, in Indiana, I think it's an LTCH, if I remember correctly. Of course, yes, that is valid here. But the permitless carry does not transfer. Your constitutional carry does not transfer. You still need the actual license to carry concealed in Michigan. So if you're on, one of those border areas like we talked about, just go get the license. In Indiana, I'm pretty sure I just read that it's free and could even last like a really long time. Someplace I saw 5 years. Somewhere else I said like for life. I'm not sure. But Michigan's duty to inform does apply to Indiana residents. So you have to inform. And then last but certainly not least, good old Illinois. I'll be honest with you. You guys have some cool stuff in your state, but I don't know how in the world you live under some of that. When I first started getting into this area, I had to even double check to make sure that Illinois even lets you even have a handgun. I know it's crazy. I mean, Chicago, right, is the land of you can't have any handguns, but every weekend 50 people get shot up there. Your Illinois resident CCL is valid to carry concealed in Michigan. Obviously, the PFZ, the pistol-free zones, and the casino rules still apply. Michigan's no gun signs are handled kind of a little bit differently. They're via trespass. I believe in Illinois, maybe somebody can comment and quote me the law or point me to it, but I believe in Illinois, if somebody puts like a no gun sign at the door, like it becomes a binding legal thing. Like you can actually potentially get criminally charged. Don't quote me on that. That's just what I've heard from several pretty credible sources. Again, I'm not an Illinois attorney, so I don't know. But of course, again, the duty to inform a police officer upon contact also applies if you're an Illinois CCL holder and get stopped or have contact in Michigan and you are carrying. And of course, just to recap, I made an entire video on this. You're going to want to visit our channel, like and subscribe that, by the way, if you're enjoying this content or getting a lot out of it. But let's talk about what to say if you're stopped, okay? What are you going to do? You're stopped by somebody in Michigan. Let's assume in the vehicle. That's the most common place to get stopped, right? Before the officer reaches the window, if you can, without making any crazy movements, right? Get the driver's license and insurance, whatever docs you can, put them in a visible place, okay? Turn the dome light on, interior dome light on, hands on the steering wheel. These are our most dangerous weapons that a human being has, and we want to make sure that the police officer knows we are not escalating anything. We don't get into arguments. We don't get into fits on the side of the road. We do our fighting in court with professionals representing us. We don't do it on the side of the road, okay? So if you can't get your docs out, dome light on, right? Hands on the wheel, window down, right? And you inform the officer, Officer, I want to let you know that I am an Ohio resident or Indiana resident or Illinois resident. I have a valid concealed carry license and I'm currently carrying. My firearm is, and then you tell them where it is. It's in my pocket, it's in the glove compartment, wherever it is. You tell them, right? My license and ID are, hopefully you were able to get them out and they're on your dash, but if they're not there, you tell them, my license and ID are in my glove compartment or in my pocket or wherever. And then you say, how would you like me to proceed? And you just let them run the show for a few minutes. 9.5 times out of 10, they're going to say, okay, where's your information? Oh, it's in the glove compartment. All right, and the gun's in your pocket. Okay, do me a favor, just don't go near your pocket. We're good. And they'll know you're being compliant. And like I also alluded to in the other videos, which it's really worth a listen. A lot of times when you're professional like that, even if you made some minor traffic infraction, the guy's like, oh, this guy's a good guy. He's probably one of me. So they don't even write you tickets. Like whatever you originally got pulled over for, like all the time, they won't even charge you. It's crazy. So I hear that time and time and time and time again. So only move when they ask you to, right? So you disclose, you provide the information, give them your license, give them that your driver's license, and give them the whatever your concealed carry document is, and make sure that they have that. So there you have it. If you or somebody you care about finds themselves on the wrong side of the law and you're anywhere near the areas that we serve, reach out to my office here at the Stickley Law Firm. You can find all of our contact information on all of our socials. And please do me a huge favor. If you find this kind of content useful and helpful, share it along with your friends. Also, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and you guys stay safe out there, and we'll see you again real soon.